During a romantic dinner, the billionaire's mistress appeared, shocking his pregnant wife with claims. Glittering chandeliers illuminate the lavish private dining suite high above Manhattan's bustling streets. At the center of it all sits billionaire power couple Alexander and Isabella Harrington, poised over an exquisite 7-course meal, as if no care in the world could touch them. Their carefully curated life, complete with a staggering fortune, philanthropic acclaim, and unassailable social status, seems picture perfect. Yet, beneath the refined conversation and subtle glances, a secret stirs, ready to shatter their empire in an instant. As the final dish is served, an unexpected visitor steps forward. With one audacious confession, "I have your child everything," the Harringtons believe in teeters on the brink of collapse. Alexander Harrington was more than a mere billionaire. He was a symbol of fierce ambition, ascending from a humble upbringing in Illinois to the pinnacle of international finance. Having proven his prowess at Harvard Business School, Alexander launched Harrington Worldwide Investments, HWI, at 30, parlaying a single hedge fund into a gargantuan empire that touched everything from real estate in Dubai to venture capital in Silicon Valley. He was known to rub shoulders with the likes of Elon Musk and Jamie Dimon, power players who recognized that Alexander was a force to be reckoned with. Isabella Montoya Harrington came from old money, her family's wealth traced through centuries of European nobility and Latin American aristocracy. Polished at Swiss boarding schools, Isabella was elegant yet warm, a queen of philanthropy, famed for her environmental initiatives. Together, Alexander and Isabella presented a united front of wealth and benevolence. Tabloids adored them, society pages lauded them. Even Warren Buffett once called their philanthropic strategy visionary. On this particular evening, the Harringtons were hosting a small, exclusive dinner at the top of the newly built Harrington Tower. Rising 70 floors above Manhattan's skyline, the building symbolized Alexander's unwavering ambition. The private dining suite was outfitted with crystal chandeliers, plush velvet drapes, and a panoramic view of the shimmering city below. Guests circulated, sipping vintage champagne and trading insider gossip about market shifts and philanthropic endeavors. Among them was Mary Whitfield, Isabella's longtime confidant, Randall Beck, a British venture capitalist rumored to be courting HWI for a massive tech partnership, and Jennifer Ellis, a respected climate activist who regularly worked with Isabella's foundation. Despite the glitz, Isabella sensed an undercurrent of tension in Alexander. Throughout the evening, she noticed his forced smiles whenever Randall Beck mentioned a tricky new negotiation, or how he gripped his wineglass just a shade too tightly. Isabella brushed off her worries, telling herself that it was just the typical strain of business. After all, the Harrington brand thrived on success, and faltering even slightly invited predatory gossip. When dessert finally arrived, petite chocolate souffles garnished with edible gold, Alexander glanced at his watch. He spoke in hushed tones to his wife, hinting at an urgent matter he needed to address soon. Isabella steeled herself, preparing for another extended night of placating anxious shareholders or dissecting some new investment, but neither of them could have predicted that the next few minutes would throw their life into a tailspin when an uninvited guest revealed a secret that threatened to unravel everything they had built. A hush fell as the dining suite doors opened once more. Heads turned with mild curiosity, expecting a delayed guest or perhaps a staff member carrying more dessert. Instead, a striking woman in a figure hugging crimson dress stepped into the golden glow of the room. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her posture radiated confidence. A flicker of confusion crossed Alexander's face, followed by an unmistakable flash of panic. Isabella noticed his reaction instantly. She had never seen her husband look so visibly unsettled, never. Uncertain of how to respond, she stood, forcing the most gracious smile she could muster. "Good evening," she greeted, her voice careful. "I'm Isabella Harrington. May I ask who you are?" The mysterious woman turned her gaze to Isabella, then flicked it back to Alexander. Her lips curved in a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. "I'm Genevieve Bianchi," she answered. "I realize I'm intruding, but I had to speak with Mr. Harrington urgently." Alexander's face went pale. Isabella felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had heard the name once before, whispered in certain circles as a socialite with business ties in Europe and rumored links to hush-hush hedge fund deals. But never had Genevieve entered their world so directly. The question seethed in Isabella's mind. What could she want with Alexander? Randall Beck, poised by the marble fireplace, cleared his throat, attempting to diffuse the tension. "Shall I summon security, Isabella?" he asked quietly. Isabella hesitated, glancing at Alexander. He seemed too stunned to speak. The entire room, Mary Whitfield, Jennifer Ellis, and a few others waited, transfixed, for the Harrington matriarch's decision. In the hush, Genevieve walked forward, stopping a mere foot from Alexander. She held her head high, ignoring the stares from all corners. "No," Isabella replied at last. "I'd like to hear what Miss Bianchi has to say." She attempted a facade of calm, but her pulse thudded so loudly she could barely think. Genevieve exhaled and turned to face the guests, scanning them as if deciding how much truth to reveal. "I apologize for barging in," she began, her accent laced with hints of French. "But this matter is delicate. Alexander," she paused, letting his name hang in the tense air, "you've refused to take my calls, answer my emails, or meet in private. So here I am, in public, because you left me no other option." Isabella's skin prickled with unease. Something was very wrong. She rested her trembling hand on the table, gripping its edge. Alexander finally regained enough composure to speak. "Genevieve, this is not the time or place." "That's precisely why it has to be here," Genevieve replied, her gaze unwavering. "Otherwise, you'll run again." At that, gasps and low murmurs erupted around the suite. Isabella felt her world tilt. For a fleeting second, she wondered if she had any idea who her husband truly was. And in that moment she realized a storm is here, and it's about to break. Before Isabella could process the implications, Mary Whitfield stepped forward, voice soft but resolute. "Isabella, shall I?" Isabella stopped her friend with a raised hand. She felt a surge of determination well up inside her, perhaps driven by a primal need to protect the empire she and Alexander had built, or at least to salvage her own dignity. "Genevieve," she said firmly, "if you have something to say, then say it, but make it quick and respectful." Genevieve inclined her head, a hint of gratitude crossing her face. She took a measured breath. "Alexander and I share a history from Paris, 5 years ago, to be exact." At these words, a quiver ran through Isabella's body. She tried to remain stoic, but her eyes darted to Alexander, whose lips had pressed into a thin line. In a matter of seconds, her mind swirled with questions. Paris, 5 years ago. She recalled that her husband had taken frequent trips to Europe in those days, forging new alliances and courting top-tier investors. Never once had she suspected anything more nefarious than business negotiations. "That's impossible," Alexander said, though his voice lacked conviction. "We only met once or twice at investor gatherings. You're overstepping." Genevieve's gaze hardened. "We both know that's not true." She paused, the tension in the suite so thick it could be cut with a knife. "But I'm not here to dredge up old affairs for gossip. I'm here because I have a child, your child, Alexander. In that instant, the hush in the room exploded into a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. Isabella's breath caught in her throat, shock waves rolling through her. She clutched the back of a chair for support, her nails digging into the velvet. Dimly, she heard Mary's stifled exclamation and Randall Beck's curses under his breath. A few guests attempted to back away discreetly, as if the drama unfolding was too searing to witness. Alexander's face drained of colour. He stammered, "You're lying. You have no proof." "I do," Genevieve countered, eyes blazing. "Paternity tests, hospital records, and financial statements that show I tried to contact you, tried to make sense of all this. For years, I've quietly kept your secret, but I can't anymore. Our daughter is 4 now. She's asking about her father, and I refuse to lie." Isabella shut her eyes, the word daughter echoing like a funeral bell in her mind. She suddenly remembered the rumors, brief as they were, about Alexander's rumored liaison in Paris. She had dismissed them as petty gossip impossible in the face of the love she thought they shared. Genevieve's voice cracked, though she tried to remain composed. "You can deny it all you want, but I won't vanish. I won't raise her without support or recognition." Alexander lurched toward Genevieve, voice trembling with anger and fear. "We'll discuss this privately. But there would be no burying this scandal, no convenient behind-the-scenes payoff. Not after such a public bombshell." And as Isabella fought to steady her breathing, she sensed that her life, the safe, gilded life she had meticulously built, was about to unravel in the glare of a scandal none of them could control. Pandemonium threatened to seize the elegant dining suite. Some guests, uncomfortable with the personal drama, quietly slipped out. Others stood rooted to the spot, half in shock, half in voyeuristic fascination. Randall Beck took the initiative to guide the remaining invitees toward the exit. "This gathering is over," he announced gently. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." One by one, the diners departed, leaving only a core group: Alexander, Isabella, Genevieve, Mary Whitfield, and a few close associates who lingered near the periphery. Isabella could barely breathe, her pulse hammering in her ears. She caught Mary's concerned gaze, but she was too shaken to respond. Alexander's jaw tightened, fury and humiliation clashing in his eyes. He lowered his voice, as if not to shatter the few remnants of decorum left. "Genevieve, you've made your point. Now, leave. We'll address this offline." She lifted her chin defiantly. "I came here because you've refused my every attempt at contact. Do you think I wanted to ruin your dinner, your perfect facade? I've exhausted all other options." At that, Isabella found her voice. "Then, you've said enough," she choked out, mustering a composure that belied the storm raging within. "Whatever the truth is, we'll handle this later, privately." Genevieve hesitated, her eyes flicking with something resembling pity at Isabella's trembling stance. "I understand," she said softly. "Believe me, I take no pleasure in doing this. But our child deserves more than a life of secrecy." Isabella bristled at the mention of our child, her stomach lurching. She turned away, unable to bear Genevieve's sympathetic gaze. A wave of panic and betrayal churned through her. Was her marriage truly a lie? Or was this woman a con artist seeking a massive payout? Alexander muttered something under his breath, ushering Genevieve toward the door. Mary hurried after them, ensuring the corridor was clear of paparazzi, mindful that such a story would devour media headlines in seconds if it leaked. Within moments, Genevieve was gone, leaving behind an air thick with unresolved questions. Isabella realized she was still gripping the back of the chair, her knuckles turning white. She sank into the seat, pressing a hand to her forehead, fighting a sudden bout of dizziness. Alexander tried to approach, but she raised a hand, stopping him. The swirl of emotions, anger, disbelief, heartbreak was too overwhelming. She needed space. She needed truth. She needed anything but the facade that had just collapsed. "We need to talk," Alexander began, voice trembling with urgency. "But not here. Let's go home." Isabella forced herself to stand. "Yes," she whispered, swallowing the knot in her throat. "Home." The place that had once felt so secure, now the mere mention of it felt hollow, as if the walls themselves might crumble beneath the weight of this betrayal. And as she turned her back on the glittering suite, the question still burned in her mind. How did it come to this? Night enveloped the Harrington penthouse in Midtown Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a postcard, perfect view of the city's skyline. But Isabella saw nothing as she stared into the darkness. She stood by the grand piano, arms wrapped around herself, replaying the evening's events in her mind. Alexander stood nearby, silent and tense, as if searching for the right words to salvage the moment. Finally he spoke. "Bella," she turned sharply, "don't call me that. Not now." Pain undercut her voice. For years, Bella had been the affectionate nickname he used in private. Now it felt contaminated by the possibility of his lies. He sighed, guilt etched across his handsome features. "Isabella, I didn't." He hesitated, words failing him. "Genevieve and I. Don't feed me more half-truths," Isabella snapped. "I want facts, Alexander. You owe me that much." He paced the marble floor, running a hand through his impeccably styled hair. "We crossed paths in Paris. I was negotiating a major deal, one that eventually fell through. We spent a few nights together." The stark admission struck Isabella like a blow. She stumbled back, steadying herself against the piano's edge. She had braced herself for the worst, but hearing him say it made the betrayal visceral. "You had an affair," she said numbly. I was overwhelmed, intoxicated, lonely," Alexander stammered. "It was a mistake, Bella, I swear." A cynical laugh escaped her. "A mistake? That's what you call fathering a child behind my back?" He looked stricken. "I had no idea there was a child. She never told me. If she had, what?" Isabella demanded. "Would you have told me, or paid her off, or pretended it never happened?" Alexander's lips parted, but no sound came. The silence stretched, thick with the unanswered question. For Isabella, that silence spoke volumes. She felt a wave of nausea and sank onto the piano bench. Gritting her teeth, she asked, "When did she contact you again?" He winced. "A few months ago. She said she wanted to talk about something important, but I ignored her messages. I thought she was just dredging up the past for financial gain. I never suspected." His voice trailed off, and Isabella could almost taste his fear and regret. She exhaled, tears hot in her eyes. "So you ran, and she chased you right into our dinner tonight." Alexander fell silent, shame pooling in his gaze. Isabella wrestled with a staggering sense of betrayal. For years she had believed in her husband, his intelligence, his compassion, his devotion. Now she felt like a spectator in her own life, watching the empire of trust collapse. At last she stood and turned away, arms crossing protectively over her chest. "I need time," she said, voice trembling. "And I need distance." "Isabella, please," Alexander pleaded, stepping closer. "Let's talk more." She looked over her shoulder, eyes red with tears. "If anything you've said so far is true, then the only thing that matters now is whether you plan to be a father to that child. But don't expect me to stand by your side until I decide if there's anything left of our marriage to save." With that, she moved toward the master bedroom, leaving Alexander alone in the hush of the penthouse. The city sparkled outside, indifferent to the crumbling world within these luxurious walls. Morning dawned grey and heavy, reflecting Isabella's mood. She had barely slept, her mind a hamster wheel of questions and accusations. Lying in bed for hours, she recalled every time Alexander had traveled without her, every suspicious phone call or text message. Yet, their life had seemed so idyllic, joint charity events, board meetings, vacations with old friends like James Goodwin, a Stanford professor who once praised the Harringtons' philanthropic sincerity. Now everything felt tainted. Eventually, Isabella roused herself, tidied her hair, and dressed in a simple black silk blouse and tailored trousers far removed from her usual vibrant ensembles. She emerged to find the penthouse eerily quiet, with Alexander presumably at his office or, perhaps, meeting with lawyers. She wanted neither to see him nor speak to him yet. Not 15 minutes later, her phone buzzed. It was Mary Whitfield. Isabella let the call go to voicemail initially, but Mary tried again. Reluctantly, Isabella answered. "Isabella, so sorry," Mary said, her voice thick with concern. "I just got word that the tabloids are sniffing around about what happened last night. Some staff at Harrington Tower must have seen Genevieve enter or overheard the argument. They're calling me for a quote." A cold dread settled in Isabella's stomach. She had spent years cultivating an impeccable public image, not because she was superficial, but because she knew how precarious the philanthropic world could be. One scandal, especially one involving extramarital affairs, could overshadow all her legitimate work. "What do they know?" Isabella asked, her voice taut. "They know that a woman confronted Alexander at dinner, claiming he fathered her child. Nothing confirmed, but enough to stir the rumor mill. They're hounding me for details, TMZ, the Daily Mirror, a couple of finance gossip blogs." Isabella gripped the phone. "Damn it." Mary hesitated. "What do you want me to say?" 1,000 impulses crossed Isabella's mind, from outright denial to a carefully worded statement. But the truth was no longer something she could bury. She recalled Genevieve's unwavering stare, her reference to hospital records, paternity tests. If Isabella lied and the facts came out later, the scandal would be bigger. "Tell them we have no comment," Isabella said, suppressing a waver in her voice. "I need time to figure out how to handle this." Mary agreed, promising to keep Isabella informed. Once the call ended, Isabella felt the weight of impending crisis pressing on her. The media would pounce, dissecting her marriage, labeling her a blind socialite or a betrayed wife, or any sensational angle they could conjure. In a rare moment of raw vulnerability, Isabella pressed her hands against her temples, fighting an oncoming migraine. She had spent her adult life building philanthropic networks, bridging alliances with environmental and humanitarian groups. In a world obsessed with sensationalism, she worried that everything she worked for would boil down to a single, salacious headline: "Billionaire's mistress demands recognition for love child." The thought of it made her stomach churn. She felt alone in a house that was once a home, haunted by the distant echo of Alexander's betrayal. And with each passing second, she knew the world was inching closer to discovering her private nightmare. At noon, Isabella forced herself into action, calling her public relations consultant, Evelyn Townsend. Crisp and professional, Evelyn had orchestrated many philanthropic campaigns for the Harrington Foundation. This, however, was a different beast entirely. "I'm aware of the rumors," Evelyn said, the moment she picked up. "We have about 24 hours before this becomes front-page news, if that. We can't simply ignore it." Isabella rubbed her aching temples. "I'm not about to issue a full-blown denial if there's any chance Genevieve has evidence. My husband, she faltered, uncertain how much to reveal. Evelyn, ever discreet, offered a gentle push. "Do you have reason to believe Genevieve's claim is valid?" A lump formed in Isabella's throat. "Yes," she admitted softly. "He confessed to an affair. And he isn't sure about the child, but it's very possible." Evelyn inhaled, no doubt recalculating her PR strategy. "Then we need to be measured and honest. If we lie now and the paternity test proves positive, we'll look worse." My recommendation is a brief statement acknowledging the gravity of the situation, requesting privacy, and emphasizing your philanthropic commitments remain unchanged. Isabella considered it. I suppose that's best. She heard Evelyn typing quickly on her end. I'll draft something and email it to you for approval. But Isabella, be prepared. This will spark a wave of media scrutiny. They'll dig into your marriage, your finances, everything. I know, Isabella said, her voice resigned. After the call, she checked her phone for messages from Alexander. Nothing. A flicker of irritation mingled with relief. Part of her wanted him to beg for forgiveness, to show some desperate sign of remorse. Another part dreaded speaking to him at all, uncertain she could trust a single word. Desperate for clarity, she rang Mary again. Mary answered immediately. Isabella, how are you holding up? Barely, Isabella confessed. I'm drafting a statement with Evelyn. I'll need your help controlling the narrative. Mary's tone was resolute. You know I'll do everything in my power. But Isabella, please, think about yourself too. Don't just protect Alexander's reputation. Isabella closed her eyes. She recognized Mary's concern, but old habits died hard. She had always stood by Alexander's side, especially in crises. Yet now she felt torn between loyalty and self-preservation. I'll keep that in mind, Isabella murmured. I might need some space from him, Mary. But the foundation, our events, everything, I can't let it fall apart. You won't, Mary reassured. We'll handle the press. We'll handle the board. Just focus on what you need, and if you need to disappear for a while, I'll cover for you. Disappear. The idea held a strange allure, but Isabella knew she couldn't run. Not from the paparazzi, and not from the truth that a small child, possibly Alexander's daughter, was out there, entangled in this fiasco. Time was running short. Tomorrow's headlines loomed, and the next move Isabella made would define not just her own future, but the legacy she and Alexander had painstakingly crafted. She prayed she could find a way to salvage her life without losing herself in the process. That afternoon, Isabella received an unexpected call from an unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, but a gut feeling made her swipe to accept. Hello? Genevieve's voice resonated on the other end, tentative yet unyielding. Isabella, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from a mutual acquaintance in Paris. Isabella's grip tightened on the phone. Why would I want to speak to you now? I understand your anger, Genevieve said quietly, but I wanted to apologize for the way everything came to light. I never intended to humiliate you. A bitter laugh escaped Isabella. Never intended. You ambushed us in front of important guests, in the most public manner possible. Silence lingered. I tried private means for weeks. Alexander refused to see me, as he refused to see me 4 years ago. I had no other way to get through. Isabella's breath caught at the mention of 4 years ago. So, you've been alone in this? With the child? Yes, Genevieve replied, voice trembling slightly. I have resources, but being a single mother isn't easy, especially when the father is a billionaire who denies your existence. I would have remained quiet forever if it was just me, but our daughter deserves more. She deserves a father who acknowledges her. An unexpected pang of empathy twisted in Isabella's chest. She thought of her philanthropic work, of championing orphanages and single-parent programs. Now she found herself facing a scenario that intersected with the very issues she sought to solve on a broader scale. It didn't quell her anger toward Genevieve for the affair, but it did stir a painful recognition of the child's innocence. How old is she? Isabella asked. Her tone softened in spite of her fury. She's 4, Genevieve answered. Her name is Emilia. The name seemed to echo in Isabella's mind. Emilia Harrington. If the paternity test confirmed everything, the child had as much claim to the Harrington lineage as any future heir. The realization was like a punch to the gut. They had never discussed children. Isabella had always prioritized her philanthropic causes. Now, Alexander might already be a father. "I'm not sure why you called," Isabella said, regaining her composure, "but if you're hoping for my sympathy—" "I'm not," Genevieve interrupted. "I've wronged you, and I accept that. But this situation isn't going away. Whether you remain with Alexander or not, I want to do what's best for our daughter. I hope we can find a solution without the media circus." Isabella's mind spun, flitting between resentment and pragmatic concern for the child. "I can't promise anything. Right now, I'm dealing with the possibility that my marriage is a lie." Genevieve exhaled softly. "I understand. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Alexander never mentioned you, never wore a ring. Had I known he was married," her voice trailed off, regret apparent. Isabella's throat constricted. She ended the call quickly, not trusting herself to remain civil. In the aftermath, she stared at the silent phone in her hand. A swirl of complicated emotions welled within her: anger at Genevieve, betrayal by Alexander, and a reluctant compassion for a mother who had been thrust into a nightmare of her own. Whatever path lay ahead, it would not be simple. The child's existence made sure of that. And as Isabella navigated the labyrinth of betrayal, media frenzy, and heartbreak, she realized that the final choice might not just be hers or Alexander's. There was a little girl's future to consider too. The next morning arrived with an unrelenting ring of Isabella's phone. Groggy and tense, she picked it up to see 20 missed calls and a string of urgent messages. It was only 7 a.m., but the scandal had apparently broken wide open. Checking her email, she saw the official statement drafted by Evelyn Townsend, which had been circulated late last night. "Mr. and Miss Harrington are aware of allegations concerning a child fathered by Mr. Harrington. Out of respect for all parties, they request privacy while the matter is examined." The Harringtons remain committed to their philanthropic and business endeavors. No further comment at this time. Short and direct. Yet it had set off an avalanche of coverage. Gossip sites screamed headlines like "Billionaire Alexander Harrington's secret love child." Financial papers took a more measured tone, exploring how the scandal might affect HWI's stock performance or philanthropic partnerships. Everywhere Isabella looked, her phone, her laptop, even social media questions and insinuations swirled like a vortex. Clutching her robe tightly, Isabella paced the living room, ignoring a swarm of incoming calls. She peeked out the penthouse windows. A cluster of paparazzi cameras flashed below, awaiting any sign of movement. The fortress-like tower offered protection, but she felt caged, her privacy invaded. A knock sounded at the door. Isabella's heart lurched, but it was Mary Whitfield, escorted by private security. Mary offered a sympathetic grimace, stepping inside. "Have you seen the coverage?" she asked softly. Isabella nodded. "It's worse than I imagined. They're digging up every rumor about Alexander's personal life, painting me as the clueless wife." Mary placed a reassuring hand on Isabella's shoulder. "We'll manage. Evelyn's drafting a more personal follow-up statement from you if you want. You don't have to do a press conference or anything drastic." Exhaustion seeped into Isabella's bones. She felt torn between wanting to correct every false assumption and wanting to vanish until the storm blew over. "What about Alexander?" she asked. "Have you spoken to him?" Mary nodded. "He's at HWI headquarters. He's facing an emergency board meeting. Investors are nervous about the scandal's impact on acquisitions. Rumor has it some potential deals are on hold." Isabella sank into a chair, pressing her hands against her forehead. Even in her fury, she felt a pang of worry for Alexander. Their finances and philanthropic ventures were deeply intertwined. One meltdown could trigger ripple effects across multiple charities and business partners. Let him handle his board, she finally said. I can't focus on that. I need to decide what to do about us. Mary's gaze was warm. And the child? A piercing ache shot through Isabella. Yes, and the child, she echoed, voice wavering. Emilia. The name continued to echo in her mind. Genevieve's voice too, with its quiet plea. Isabella couldn't ignore that a child was caught in the crossfire, nor could she ignore the possibility that her husband might be responsible. Take your time, Mary urged. Talk to lawyers, talk to a counselor if you need. Right now, the media's howling for blood, but you don't have to feed them any. Protect yourself, Isabella. She nodded, steeling herself with a resolve she scarcely felt. Protect yourself. Protect your future, but at what cost? The question lingered unanswerable as the glare of morning light ignited the city below, a city now clamoring for her downfall or her heartbreak, whichever sold the most papers. By midday, Isabella had retreated to a quieter corner of the penthouse. She curled up on a chaise lounge, an array of documents spread before her, some from her PR team, others from the Foundation's legal counsel, and a few from the top divorce lawyers in Manhattan. Just seeing the word divorce typed in crisp black letters made her stomach twist. A gentle knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to see Alexander entering cautiously, as though he were intruding on sacred ground. Dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, he appeared haggard, dark circles under his eyes, tie loosened in a sign of uncharacteristic disarray. She straightened, heart pounding. What do you want? He sat in a chair across from her, hands clasped. To apologize. Again, and to tell you I met with my lawyers this morning regarding paternity testing. I plan to do whatever is necessary. If the child is mine, I'll take responsibility. A swirl of emotion seized Isabella. She stared at him, recalling the once proud man who had dazzled the business world. Now he looked lost, consumed by regret. And what does that responsibility look like? He swallowed, voice subdued. I'll provide financially. I'll be in her life if Genevieve allows. But I also want to save our marriage. He paused, meeting her gaze. I love you, Bella, despite my terrible mistakes. I want to fix this somehow. Pain lanced through her. She thought back to the times they'd volunteered, side by side, laughing as they painted walls at a children's hospital, or the nights they'd stayed up brainstorming how to improve water access in developing nations. She believed in the sincerity of those moments. Could they coexist with the betrayal that now defined them? She sighed, forcing her voice to remain steady. Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip. You shattered my trust. And every day, the media coverage humiliates me. Why should I stand by you when you've lied to me for years? Alexander's shoulders drooped. Because we've built a life together. Because I'm willing to make amends, no matter the cost. I'll sign a postnuptial agreement if you want me to. Anything. A flicker of sadness rose in her chest. She might have found comfort in his desperation if the wounds weren't so fresh. It's not that simple, she whispered. There's a child involved. If she's yours, you'll be tied to Genevieve forever. I don't know if I can handle that. He reached out for her hand. She let him take it, but her grip remained limp. I can't rewrite the past, he said. All I can do is promise that every second from now on, I'll earn your trust back. Please, Bella. She studied his face, searching for any hint of insincerity. She found only regret and longing. Her heart tore in two directions, one urging her to believe in love, the other screaming for independence and self-preservation. At length, she pulled her hand away, tears pricking her eyes. I'm not saying it's impossible, she managed, voice choked with grief. But you have to understand that I'm not sure I can stay. I need proof you'll be a better man, and I need time to decide if I even want that man in my life. Alexander nodded, swallowing hard. I understand, he whispered. No further words could bridge the chasm between them, so he rose and left. Isabella watched him go, heart heavy. For the first time in her life, the path ahead felt irreparably fragmented, a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted to solve. In a turn of events that felt surreal even to Isabella, she found herself meeting Genevieve Bianchi in person 2 days later, away from cameras, lawyers, and the public eye. The location was a discreet private lounge in a midtown hotel frequented by high-profile individuals who valued anonymity. Isabella had chosen it to avoid paparazzi swarming outside Harrington Tower. Genevieve arrived in a fitted navy dress, looking understated yet poised. She offered a polite nod, her eyes revealing a tension that mirrored Isabella's. They found a quiet booth tucked away from the lounge's entrance. After an awkward silence, Genevieve spoke first. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she said softly, glancing at her manicured nails. "I know you have every reason to hate me." Isabella folded her hands on the table, the swirl of the lounge's ambient music humming in the background. "I'm not sure what I feel," she admitted. "Hate, anger, betrayal, pity for the child, it's all a blur." Genevieve nodded. "I understand. If I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same. I wouldn't have blamed you if you refused to meet." Isabella exhaled. "I thought about refusing. But there's Emilia." A softness touched Genevieve's face at the mention of her daughter. "She's my world," she said. "I know this scandal is overshadowing everything, but I didn't come here to secure money or ruin your marriage. I just want my daughter to have a father." The sincerity in Genevieve's voice tugged at Isabella's carefully guarded emotions. She found herself recalling the philanthropic visits she'd made to single-parent shelters, how she'd always admired the resilience of the mothers. Now, ironically, she was face to face with the very scenario she had empathized with from a distance. "How do you see this playing out?" Isabella asked, forcing herself to sound calm. "Say the paternity test confirms Alexander is Emilia's father. Then what?" Genevieve's eyes flickered with hope. "Emilia deserves to know him if he's willing to truly be present. That means visits, calls, maybe traveling between the US and Europe. I'm open to joint custody arrangements, provided we can keep it dignified." "And what about me?" Isabella pressed. "You realize this could destroy my marriage. Even if we stay together, you'll be a permanent fixture in our lives." A flash of regret passed over Genevieve's features. "I don't expect you to welcome me into your family, but I hope we can be civil for Emilia's sake. She's innocent in all this." Isabella swallowed hard, tears threatening. She loathed the idea of forging any bond with the woman who had slept with her husband. But the alternative, cutting out a child from her father, felt equally wrong. At last she said, "I can't make promises about the future, but I won't stand in the way if Alexander wants to do right by Emilia. Whether the first stay married or not, that's his responsibility." Genevieve bowed her head. "That means more than you know." They sat in an uneasy truce, two women caught in a moral quagmire. For a fleeting instant, Isabella glimpsed Genevieve's own struggle, no longer simply the other woman, but a mother seeking a better life for her child. And although Isabella's own heart bled with betrayal, she felt an echo of empathy that both comforted and unnerved her. If they were to navigate this impossible situation with grace, perhaps they would need each other more than they cared to admit. 2 weeks later, the day Isabella both dreaded and anticipated arrived: paternity test results. The legal team had arranged for a reputable DNA clinic, ensuring no leaks. Isabella waited at the penthouse, pacing by the windows with her phone in hand. Outside, the city sparkled in early evening light, a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling inside her. A beep signaled a text message from Alexander. Therein, "I'm on my way." She exhaled shakily. Whatever happens now, at least we'll have the truth. She thought about how drastically her life had changed in a matter of weeks. Philanthropic luncheons overshadowed by scandal, board meetings, replaced with hush-hush consultations about custody and reputational damage. Less than half an hour later, Alexander walked in, an envelope in his hand. His eyes were grave, and the tension between them felt like a physical barrier. She invited him into the living room, noting how he fiddled with the envelope's seal. He spoke first, voice taut. "The test is conclusive. Emilia is my daughter." The finality of his words brought Isabella to a standstill. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Even though she had braced for this, part of her still clung to a shred of denial. Now that denial dissolved, leaving behind raw certainty. "So it's true," she murmured, sinking into the sofa. "Everything Genevieve said." He nodded, standing awkwardly by the coffee table. "I'm so sorry," he managed. "I truly didn't know until now." Isabella didn't speak for several moments, letting the confession settle in. Strangely, there was relief in having a clear answer, no more false hopes or illusions, that the scandal was a mere fabrication. "What do you plan to do?" Alexander swallowed. "I plan to be her father. Whether that means shared custody or something else, I won't abandon her. I've already spoken to Genevieve. She's willing to negotiate terms." Her eyes flickered with a rush of conflicting emotions, resentment, sorrow, grudging respect. "So you'll be part of Emilia's life?" A quiet nod. "Yes." She willed herself not to cry. The child was innocent. That much she recognized. It was Alexander's betrayal that cut her to the core. Yet as she studied him, she recalled the man she fell in love with, the man whose philanthropic zeal matched her own. Was that man beyond redemption? "I've asked my lawyer for paperwork on a trial separation," she said evenly, ignoring the tremor in her voice. "I can't make decisions about divorce yet, but I can't live with you. Not now." Alexander's face fell, tears pooling in his eyes. "I understand. I won't contest it. I'll give you whatever space you need," she nodded, heart heavier than ever. "I hope, for Emilia's sake, that you become the father she deserves." Her gaze flicked to the swirling lights of the city. "As for us, I'm not sure if we have a future together." Silence hung like a funeral shroud. Ultimately, the truth had come unforgiving, relentless. And with it, a chasm opened between them that might never fully close. All Isabella could do was clutch her pride, her heartbreak, and the sliver of hope that, in the end, she could still shape her own destiny beyond this betrayal. In the following weeks, Isabella embarked on a path of self-discovery laced with grief. She moved out of the penthouse into a small but upscale apartment on the Upper East Side. Though nowhere near as opulent as her former home, it offered her a sanctuary to think and heal away from the constant reminders of Alexander's presence. She poured her energies into the Harrington Foundation, refusing to let the scandal stifle her philanthropic endeavors. Board members rallied around her, with Mary Whitfield and Jennifer Ellis by her side, ensuring that the Foundation's projects continued smoothly. Though the media had a field day at first spreading photos of Isabella's solo appearances at events, public curiosity gradually waned. A new scandal involving a tech mogul took center stage, and Isabella found pockets of respite from the spotlight. Alexander, for his part, alternated between earnest attempts to see her and respectful distance when she asked for it. He sent heartfelt letters, texts, and voice messages, each time reiterating his remorse. Occasionally, she allowed him a meeting, particularly to discuss philanthropic matters requiring both their signatures. Always the air between them bristled with unresolved tension. He also began forging a relationship with Emilia. Genevieve stayed in a rented apartment in Manhattan temporarily, letting father and daughter spend time together. Rumors of a potential custody arrangement trickled through social circles, though exact details remained private. And to Isabella's reluctant admiration, Alexander committed to meeting Emilia at least 3 afternoons a week, taking her to children's museums or reading to her at a quiet cafe. The glimpses Isabella occasionally caught photos or stories from Mary revealed a part of Alexander she had rarely seen, gentle, patient, humbly learning the rhythms of fatherhood. One crisp autumn evening, Mary visited Isabella's new apartment, bringing takeout from their favorite Thai place. They ate in the modest living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. The conversation turned to Alexander. "How do you feel about him now?" Mary asked gently, swirling noodles around her fork. Isabella stared at the steam rising from her bowl. "Conflicted," she admitted. "He's trying so hard. Part of me hates him for the pain he caused, but another part sees genuine change. He's no longer that smug, unstoppable billionaire. He's vulnerable, willing to be accountable." Mary nodded. "Do you think you'll file for divorce?" Isabella sighed. "I don't know. Legally, I'm free to do so, but a piece of me wonders if there's still a chance to rebuild. I see the father he's becoming for Emilia. I wonder if he could be the partner I always thought I married, if we both put in the work." Mary reached out, giving Isabella's hand a reassuring squeeze. "Whatever you decide, you'll have support." Isabella managed a small smile. The heartbreak was still there, a dull ache in her chest, but it no longer dominated every waking moment. She was forging a new identity, one that acknowledged the past but wasn't chained to it. And though forgiveness remained distant, the possibility of a different future, whether alone or with Alexander, began to flicker like a timid light at the end of a long, shadowed tunnel. Several more months drifted by, bringing incremental shifts in everyone's lives. Alexander and Emilia fell into a steady routine. Genevieve even returned to her home in Paris for a time, trusting Alexander to care for Emilia during her frequent business trips. Meanwhile, Isabella's philanthropic engagements flourished, receiving fresh endorsements from heavyweight names in finance and activism. The Harrington Foundation soared to new heights under her leadership, its reputation outlasting the scandal that once threatened to swallow it whole. But amid the public calm, a private question lingered. Would Isabella and Alexander reconcile or sever ties permanently? Their trial separation agreement was nearing its end, and the day approached for them to decide the future of their marriage in formal terms. One chilly December afternoon, Alexander invited Isabella to a neutral setting, a refined private room at the Palisade Hotel, overlooking Central Park. She arrived in a tailored emerald coat, her heart pounding with uncertainty. When she stepped inside, she found him seated by a fireside, a manila folder beside him. They exchanged polite greetings, like two acquaintances who shared a complicated past. He poured her some tea from a porcelain pot, hands trembling slightly. "I wanted to talk about us," he began, "and to show you something." He slid the folder across the table. With trembling hands, Isabella opened it. Inside, she found a meticulously drafted philanthropic initiative, the Emilia Harrington Fund. Pages detailed scholarships for single-parent families, grants for childcare innovations, and job training programs aimed at economically challenged mothers. "I started it a couple months ago," Alexander explained, voice quiet. "I used personal funds, not HWI or the foundation. I wanted to honor Emilia and also address some of the hardest lessons I've learned through this mess." A swell of emotion caught Isabella off guard. She scanned the proposed budgets, the mission statements, and saw the thoroughness of Alexander's dedication. It was more than a PR move. There were no flashy announcements, no media coverage, just a sincere attempt to support those he now understood better than before. Her throat felt tight. "Alexander, this is admirable. But why show me now?" he sighed, looking into her eyes. "Because I want you to see I'm committed to change. Not just for Emilia, but for the world we tried to help together. I'm not the man who lied to you anymore. I can't erase my betrayal, but I can do better. I want you to be part of this initiative, no strings attached. Even if you decide to finalize our separation." She set the papers down, her heart a storm of conflicting feelings, admiration, lingering pain, a cautious spark of hope. "I'm impressed," she admitted, "but I can't promise that this means I'll come back to you." He nodded, eyes earnest. "I understand. My lawyer is finalizing the paperwork for whatever choice you make. If you want a divorce, you'll have it fair settlement, no fight. If you want to try again, I'll devote myself to earning your trust, day by day." Isabella let out a long breath. The unvarnished sincerity in his words knocked against the fortress around her heart. Quietly, she closed the folder. "I need time to think." Alexander offered a faint smile. "Take all you need." As she left, the city lights glimmered around her, and for the first time since Genevieve's explosive entrance, Isabella felt a sense of possibility. She didn't know if she could truly forgive him, but she couldn't deny that in the wreckage of the scandal, something genuine, something worth salvaging had emerged. The final chapter of this turbulent saga played out on a chilly January morning. Isabella stood on the balcony of her apartment, sipping coffee as she watched pale sunlight break over Manhattan's rooftops. In her hands lay 2 sets of legal documents, one finalizing her divorce from Alexander Harrington, the other putting forth a new marital agreement that acknowledged Emilia's place in their lives, while also granting Isabella protections that hadn't existed before. A gentle breeze ruffled her hair. She recalled the heartbreak of that first revelation, the searing humiliation of the dinner, and the tidal wave of press attention. In the months since, she had discovered that her identity was not solely tethered to her husband. She had her own strength, her own mission. Yet in that discovery, she also found empathy for Alexander's growth. Leaving her coffee cup behind, she walked indoors, heart pounding as she picked up her phone. Mary Whitfield had promised to stand by her, whichever route she chose. The same went for Jennifer Ellis and the foundation board, all of whom admired the quiet dignity Isabella maintained through the ordeal. Raising the phone, she pressed the call button. Alexander answered, his voice tentative. "Isabella?" She drew a slow breath. "We need to meet at the tower in your office." Within the hour, she stood at Harrington Tower's top floor, a space she once frequented daily. The hush of the executive suite enveloped her as she stepped into his large, modern office. He rose from behind his desk, a mixture of hope and anxiety on his face. She gestured for him to remain still, setting the documents before him on a glass table. "I've decided," she said softly. "I can't forget what you did, but I've seen how committed you are to making amends for me, for Emilia, for the foundation." His eyes widened, flicking from her face to the papers. "Are these?" She nodded, voice trembling. "They're a revised marital contract. It acknowledges Emilia legally, sets boundaries with Genevieve, and ensures my independence. We remain partners, romantic and otherwise, only if you respect every clause. If you breach it, there's no second chance." A wave of relief and awe crossed his expression. He moved closer, tears shimmering in his eyes. "Bella, thank you. I swear I won't." She lifted a hand to stop him. "Don't swear. Just do it. Day by day, show me you're worthy of this new start." Alexander nodded, voice thick. "I will." They signed the documents with a pen that once symbolized their philanthropic deals. Now it sealed a second chance at love, conditional, fragile, but real. When it was over, Alexander hesitated, then asked softly, "Will you have dinner with me tonight?" She gazed at him, her heart fluttering. "Yes," she murmured, "but no secrets this time." A faint smile curved his lips. The road ahead would be complex. There was still Genevieve and Emilia, the media's lingering curiosity, and the scars of betrayal. Yet, as Isabella stepped away from the desk, A sense of tentative hope enveloped her. They would move forward, not as the perfect golden couple the world once adored, but as flawed individuals striving to build something genuine from the rubble. Sometimes the hardest truths pave the way for the most meaningful transformations. Thank you for immersing yourself in this riveting tale where high society's glitz collided with the raw devastation of infidelity. From the dizzying heights of Harrington Tower to the intimate corners of a city that never sleeps, we followed Isabella and Alexander's tumultuous path, haunted by secrets, threatened by scandal, yet still capable of redemption. We witnessed a shocking revelation derail a picture-perfect marriage, only to illuminate the power of honesty, empathy, and second chances. Through heartbreak and healing, each character found the strength to move forward on a road neither simple nor certain, but filled with possibilities. If you were captivated by every dramatic twist, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support ensures more storytelling that brims with intense emotion, universal dilemmas, and unforgettable journeys. Keep following us for tales that remind us how the greatest tests can spark the most profound transformations. Thanks for watching. Your engagement keeps these stories alive,